second year. Okay.
Sorry.
On the screen. Having been a volunteer in Kent Tennis for over 25 years prior to this, she's probably best known for starting the mini tennis program, which is a worldwide phenomenon. So she was a person that started the red, orange and green ball tennis that we know, and has also worked at the Bromley Tennis Centre, and where I first met her as a coach at the Park Langley Club. She's going to no doubt tell us much more about her very important role, which is the leading volunteer role in the LTA as president, and it's something she will hold for 3 years. Over to Sandi.
Okay, well, I've got some questions in front of me that Nigel sent me. So if you're happy, shall I just follow that?
Yeah, start from there.
Having said that, I don't know that I've met Charlotte.
Okay.
And I have met Andy, actually. So you might want to do, maybe have a quick introduction to a few of you guys. Where have you come from suddenly on the Kent board?
Shall I go first? I saying as I was mentioned first. Hi, Sandy. I've seen you a few times in action presenting various trophies and medals to my children.
Oh, wow.
But never have we actually met. So I'm based down in Canterbury. I'm a member at Canterbury Avenue, mainly a tennis parent, but I picked up lessons late in life myself, so I'm a member of both clubs in my own right, but definitely as sort of my children play it competitively, and that's how I came into Kent Tennis.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll go along just to point out the few. Rob, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Sandy. I'm Rob Slater from Mepham Tennis Club, and I've just Andy's kind of come onto the board, Andy Candler, and he's kind of pulling me along to help him out on a few things. So yes, I'm a volunteer, and I'm working with Keith on a few things as well, Keith Gill.
Okay, all right, brilliant. And Mimi, I think we have met, and I've seen you on a lot of aren't you Horseman Den?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm chairman of Horseman Den, and just kind of found my way onto the council.
Okay, excellent. And you've been a good volunteer there for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I thought you had. Andy, tell me a bit more about yourself. I have met you, but
yeah, so I started my tennis at the bat and ball basically, and then 14 years ago, probably about 16 years ago, I moved to Mepham, and then became chair seven years ago. So Rob's the treasurer, so we work quite closely, and I'm the chair at Mepham, and on the board as of sort of 6 weeks ago. So enjoying it, challenging, and sort of taking over the big shoes of John Ratcliffe. So
okay.
a lot to do. Yeah.
I don't know if his shoes are all that big, actually, but anecdotally they might be. Historically. So okay, so I'll head off with the questions that Nigel gave me, and I'll try not to be too long with this so that you can throw questions at me of your own that I don't cover. So Nigel said, tell you what the LTA does. Well, the obvious thing you probably know is that LTA is the national governing body for the sport. It is commonly thought out there that actually we also run Wimbledon, so you may well find perceptions out there a little bit weird when you're with clubs. We are the only country where our governing body does not run our Grand Slam. So in France, Australia and the US, their governing body runs a Grand Slam. That makes a very big difference to us in terms of A, control of the Grand Slam, and B, financially. The other 3 Grand Slams make a whole lot more money than we do. There is a common perception that the LTA is very rich, but compared to the other Grand Slams, it's far from the case. And indeed, far from the case if you compare us as well to rugby, cricket and football. And so that's what we essentially do. So I think, you must be aware, I think, that it has a number of member organisations, because Kent Tennis is one of them. It also has a number of member organisations that are not counties. So Isle of Man and Scotland, Wales and Channel Islands are considered national and island associations. And then we have some independent associations of UK Armed Forces and ABTO and Seniors Tennis GB and the Tennis Industry Association. We also have Phil's not on the call, is he? But I know if he was, he'd have a hissy fit if I didn't mention United Banks, who are a member organisation but don't have a councillor. So there are a few organisations that don't have one, United Banks being one, Oxford and Cambridge universities, British universities, and a few other odd ones that are like civil service, I think, are another one. So I think there's shortly going to be a bit of a review of member organisations. So it means that there are about, along with 8 independent councillors and then independent board member councillors, we have an LTA council of around 60 to 65. And that is what essentially I lead. I don't chair the board. So we're again quite unusual in that everybody has a CEO, that's fine, but we have a separate board chairman from president. Again, the other 3 big countries, that role is exactly the same. So I don't have anything like the magic wand that the president of France, Australia, or US have. I am literally my role is leading the volunteer group and leading the council, and then representing the council in Great Britain at international meetings and the Grand Slams and events. I don't chair the board. I'll be honest, I'd have run a mile if I had to do that as well. That's a far more high-powered job than I think I could ever do. So that's sort of largely it. Obviously, what we do is around supporting the whole infrastructure that actually delivers tennis on the ground. So that means supporting clubs, it means having resources and qualifications and some sort of structure for coach education, and it has support for local authorities, and I mean, I think you probably know a lot about the parks projects. 3,000 courts by September will have been resurfaced and with gate access systems. So the top end of the LTA, largely the CEO, a bit of the board chairman, will also be talking a lot to the government. And since Scott's been in, we have a much better relationship with the government, which is why we got that £22 million. Emma Raducanu, our little contribution, helped just a bit. And then we've got better relationships with the media that the CEO would also look after, and the chairman and the CEO also look after our relationship with the All England Club. All very sort of heady relationships, to be honest. I'm in that a little bit in that I'm on the championships committee, but I don't have the sort of the real heady roles of sorting out the very, very complex relationship that we do have with them. What else can I say about what we do? Obviously, we're also involved, because Mary's just come big up on my screen, it's just reminded me that, of course, we do also support schools. And right across, and we are now, as a tennis organisation, and tennis is in way more schools than it has been in for many, many years. And a lot of that has got to do with the various focus campaigns on getting activities and equipment into schools. In fairness, that's been going on for years, but it is better than ever at the moment. We also do LTA awards and recognition and support for volunteers. We've obviously got a website with loads and loads of stuff on it. Honestly, there is more on that website than any of you could ever believe or know is all there. But it is worth looking at key things. One is the venue support toolkit. because the likelihood is you are from venues, most of you, and there is so much on there. Even if all you did was look at all the list of titles, you would get a picture of how much is around to help everybody. Certainly, having visited a lot of other countries, we do provide way more resources than any other country I know, but I don't think we're that good at promoting that we've got them and getting them used. So that's where we hope, I think, the whole LTA cascading and supporting counties, and then we hope that counties will in turn then cascade this information down as much as you can. So can you think of any questions on the what do we do? I've got here how many staff, around 250. Yes, we do own Nottingham Tennis Centre. A very new thing. The LTA has never owned anywhere before other than the National Tennis Centre, but Nottingham was about to be, well, Nottingham local authority wanted to get rid of it, and we'd have lost it if the LTA hadn't taken it over. And it's a very important tournament venue for us. We have major events, grass court season. Sometimes we call that the summer of tennis, around Nottingham, Surbiton, Ilkley, Queens. The only one that makes any money out of all those events is, in fact, Queens. And that's largely because of the corporate hospitality and being in London. None of the other events are in any way financially sustainable. So you can watch this space for some changes over the next few years around major events, because there'll be a limit to how long we can just support things that aren't sustainable. We also organise GB teams and support players. And somebody sent me a little snippet today of a little article about Harriet Dart in a Waitrose magazine. We now have 3 women in the top 100. And there's no doubt, since there's been a much more focused interest on professional players and the National Tennis Centre turning into a place that they really want to train at, our players have done much, much better. I'm just putting the bulletin together, and one of just the one-liners is that in 2023, our GB Pro players lifted 210 pro titles last year. So that is more than probably we've seen in donkey's years, I think, since about 1978. So not that there were as many tournaments in those days anyway. But it really is, our GB players are making us much more excited than they have done for years. So the next question I've got for, does anybody got any questions about that bit before I move on to regional teams?
Can I just ask, oh, sorry. Can I ask this, Sandy, sort of being new to, what sort of links do you have in the LTA in terms of, say, like Sport England? You mentioned about now getting government links, but I was sort of intrigued about Sport England because obviously I know.
That's really good. So basically, Sport England govern us.
Yes.
So they look after, their job is to make sure that all the governing bodies for sport are behaving themselves and are well governed. And they're also responsible for funding according to how they think a governing body is performing. We do very well. We probably get as much out of them as we ever could because they actually like us, and because we have to submit plans to them. So we would have submitted our 5-year strategy, and now we're submitting our 3-year, and they like what we do. And we are extremely good in certain areas, such as, I think you probably know, we're amazing at safeguarding.
Yes.
And they're very appreciative. We're also now well governed because we've reduced our council from 120 down to 60. And a lot of the other governing bodies have taken a lot longer. And also Sport England told us that we had to encourage you guys to get better governed, which is where all the 9-year term limits came in, which has been a little bit of a struggle for counties to adopt. And, you know, unsurprising really, because nobody really wants to ask volunteers who do a brilliant job to stand down. But I think that's starting to work itself out around the fact that just because you have to stand down from a management committee after 9 years, it doesn't mean you can't still be involved. And so there are still plenty of volunteers that are still very active in counties, but not necessarily on the management committees. So that's where Sport England fit in. We get a fair amount of money. I don't actually know. Scott has all that kind of data right on his tip of his tongue, but it's certainly in the millions that we get over a 3-year spell. I think something like 10 million. So it's good. And we would have to answer to them if we started to spend that money unwisely or be badly governed. Somebody else had one.
Yeah, I was going to ask, can you hear me?
Yep.
I was going to ask whether it's worth kind of explaining how the regional LTA teams work with the counties, kind of roles and responsibilities and that connection. Okay, well, I'll try not to go over the history because it's quite a long one, and some of you, it's probably not of great interest, but the LTA has a team called the LTA Regional Team, although coming May, that name will change. So you might as well get used to it. It's going to be called the National Delivery Team. Right, Abby Lench, who's an absolute star, is the head of the National Delivery Team based at the National Tennis Centre. And she is, of course, from Kent, I would like to point out, from Dover. And she will then manage the team that is out in the field, and they will be called, they'll be national, what was it? Heads of National Delivery, which are currently the heads of the regional teams. So for us, that's John Golding. And that won't change for us. It's changing a little bit in the North and Midlands, but you don't need to worry about that. And then below John, he hasn't got to reapply for his job, but poor Harry has. So her role is disappearing. They will have a number of delivery managers, and they will be much more general than specific. So whereas Harry for the last few years has been the competition person for the Southeast, and I think Jess Down has been the workforce person, and others have been very complicated acronyms like PDPs and PWPs and WPPs and goodness knows what else. They will just all be called delivery managers, and they will just, they will have to know everything, which is going to be quite hard for them. But this will not impact the county in any way. All of those people will still be supporting clubs and supporting Kent. Kent will get most of its support from, in fact, the head of delivery, John, still. But I think you guys, administratively, you meet with, is it Jemima who looks after you?
Yeah, Jem or
Jem.
Yeah, we've got two, haven't we?
We've got Amy.
Amy.
Yeah, and there's no reason that shouldn't continue. I imagine it will continue just the same. So I don't think anybody will feel the changes other than that there'll be nobody specifically for workforce and nobody specifically for competitions. And that's where we've got to sort of find our way. I'm pretty sure that Janice, or I don't know who else, you must go to Harry whenever it's about competitions, and you may still do so. But they are going to be much more generic, and there will be an attempt to focus on what they found out works the best through the data they've got. So if this is done, then this increases participation, or this increases number of competitors. So they want to focus on the things that make a difference. And those delivery managers will have to do that. I think
the numbers wise, I think we're still going to have 6 in the southeast, but I don't quite know how commonly known it is, but Essex is joining the southeast and Sussex is leaving the southeast to go to south and southwest, because poor old Sussex, they're like the sort of they're the small county amongst the big guns, and they'll be far better off to be with Dorset and Hampshire and Wiltshire. And Essex are amongst a lot of small counties, and they'd be much better off to be with Middlesex, Surrey and Kent. So does that answer enough there, Claire?
Yes, I didn't actually know there was changes coming, but yeah, that's useful to know.
Yeah, they've just been delivered. I wouldn't shout about it too much in case I've sort of spoken a bit too soon, but they've been delivered to the councillors, and the current teams are reapplying for their jobs. So sympathies out there for those that you know, particularly Harry, who's now probably gone through about 4 reorganisations, is probably, I mean, she's definitely going to apply for a job, and I would have thought she was a shoo-in, but I don't know how she feels about the changes. She'll still enjoy it.
I think Keely's got a hand up.
Keely?
Oh, you haven't?
Sorry, no.
I can't see everybody, so somebody keep an eye on that. I've got, should trustees attend a regional forum or other meetings like volunteer and day and venue forums? Right, so I don't know which ones of you are trustees, but regional forums, now because of these recent changes, one of the things I'm doing amongst the councillors, particularly from the counties, is we're going to review how the regional forums work, because some of the regions are changing shape. So we've got to decide how we want to run regional forums going forwards. So I'm not going to say whether you should attend or not. It will depend on how we review it and how we decide they are run. What I would say is if you get the opportunity to, you should, because you learn a lot. In the Central and East, where there are currently 9 counties, they limit their regional forum attendance to only 2 people. In the Southeast, we've never limited because we've only been 4 counties and we're still only going to be 4 counties. So we don't have to be quite so stingy about attendance.
Oh, something's happened. Oh, that's better.
There.
I saw a whiteboard all of a sudden. Lucy or somebody, I don't know. Oh,
yeah.
Was it Andy? I don't know.
I think it was Andy. I'm going to say I didn't
You're
touch
just
it.
showing off, Andy, right? Showing us you
No.
can put a whiteboard on the.
I wish I knew what I was doing. I did it by accident.
I don't know how to do that. Around regional forums, my recommendation would be always attend if the regional forum organisers in our London and South East say it's open to more people. And they're usually 2 hours and they're mostly online. Once a year, there might be a face-to-face. And sometimes, and I think this is probably up to Keith, he'll know what the topics are going to be, and he might invite you based on knowing that you've got expertise or interest in a topic. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if a topic is going to be reviewing the awards and there needs to be a discussion about it, then it would be a good thing for somebody like Mary and Karen to be invited along. If the competition's, if one of the topics is going to be about financials and the funding model, then it might be a thing to invite the treasurer along. So sometimes you can go along based on topic. Other meetings like volunteer day, it's the Kent Volunteer Day he's talking about, and venue forums. Absolutely. I mean, please go to those. I've always learned such a lot by going to those. And in the words of Billie Jean King, yes, I have read her book. It's called All In, and it's brilliant. It's blooming long, and I listen to it, and she reads it brilliantly. But she she says there are 3 very important things for life going forwards. And she said, number 1 is relationships are key. Number 2 is be a problem solver and an innovator. And I've just got to think what the other third one is. Right, come on, Claire, you can help me out with this. What's the third one? Or what's the first one? I'll think of it in a minute. I can't believe that's gone out of my head because I'm talking too much.
Well, maybe there are 3 there, Sandy, if you split them out.
No,
There
no.
are 3 if you split them out.
No. Right, okay. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. It's probably not that important because the most important one is that relationships are key. And actually in your role as Kent trustees and Kent people, then actually forging relationships with people in your venues actually is really important. I pay a lot of attention. Oh, I've got the first one. Learning. Always keep learning and keep learning how to learn. So I had no problem with that because I love learning. I had no problem with being innovative, and I'm probably a little bit too creative, to be honest. Not everybody likes all my weird and wonderful ideas. But I had to, when I became president, I had to really work on the relationship one. And I have found out how important it is to have relationships. For me, it's relationships with all the councillors and relationships with the people I work with at the National Centre. For you, it's relationships with each other, but also relationships with the venues. It's probably unsurprising that you'll get more cooperation and more involvement from the venues if you have a relationship with them. And so I actually would say, yes, absolutely go to any kind of volunteer forums that you do in Kent and any venue forums that you do. Nigel says that you are re-establishing the venue forums, and I'm delighted about that. I mean, the coffee morning that, well, it's mainly been Janice and Phil and now Jane that you guys run. It's fantastic. And you are forging relationships through that. And the more you do that, I think the more you'll get. I'm guessing people like Mimi, you may have come to the front because of the coffee mornings. Am I right?
They helped. Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely helped. Yeah. I'm thinking I've been involved in other things along the way anyway, but I think the coffee mornings have been brilliant.
Yeah, they're a really good example, and I share those quite a lot and did, especially during COVID. And it is now amazing how many counties do virtual venue forums. One of the venue forum examples is Berkshire, who do venue forums in venue size. So they will have a small venue forum and then a large venue forum, so that they are actually meeting with people who are more like them. And that seems to work well with them, because I think that smaller venues can be a bit overawed by the likes of going to a meeting where there's Canterbury and Bromley Tennis Centre and Park Langley and Sundridge Park and Avenue. So, you know, it is sometimes quite good to get the little ones together on their own and talk about things that bother smaller venues.
Sandy, is that done online or is that done in person?
Bit of both.
Okay.
So more recently, I mean, during COVID, they did them online, but now they meet face to face.
Okay.
It's good. I thought it was a good idea, and they say they get more. They've got very high percentage of their venues actually attend forums, something like 80%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting as well when it comes to the awards, having looked and worked out really carefully that we have a lot of small clubs in the county, that we actually have the Kent Award for the clubs that have 1 to 4 courts.
Yes,
and it's not necessarily the larger clubs that go forward to the regional finals. It has on occasions been small clubs, but to try and get the message out to small clubs that it's worth nominating is incredibly hard. And what you're saying would make a big difference, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think a lot of these things, you've just got to get over the hurdle of getting them to attend once. Because I'm going to say you would always see the benefit if you just get there once. And so it's just persuading them to step into it for the first time. And actually, to back up what you said, Mary, very often the national club of the year has in fact been a small club.
Yeah.
Last year it was East Berkholt, and they've got 3 courts.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual, and they're in a recreation ground. So yeah. I've got here, how do counties fit in by delivering a core role supported by a 90k grant? I have no idea what he's asking there.
Move on.
Move on. Well, are you all aware of the core role? Do you all know that little phrase? Because that's all part of the governance thing, and the whole funding model was changed from counties receiving the money from affiliation stroke registration from Kent clubs and doing what you like with it, to it going to the LTA, but coming back in a different way, but coming back with a very clear set of functions to use the money for. Now, this didn't make a massive difference to Kent because we ultimately get what we were always getting in the first place. But if I tell you it made a rather large difference to somewhere like Cumbria and Cornwall, where they were getting probably about £8,000 from their affiliation fees and now get around £60,000 from this new fund, because the board gave an extra £1.2 million to this, a sort of levelling up, because although Cumbria might only have about 8 clubs, they still have to face a lot of the same costs in terms of county teams, running awards, running events, county training, etc. So there's just a bit of a levelling up. So the Cumbria type counties get about 60 grand and we get about 90 grand. So the core role is a whole set of activities that we are expected to do for that funding. And it isn't really, and there's nothing in there that is different from what Kent were already doing. In fairness, Kent have been a model county for years, so we weren't exactly, if we were spending, I don't know, 40 grand a year on our schools competitions and nothing on disability tennis, then we would have been facing some sort of changes, but we weren't. We were always very level-headed with what we were spending on schools and what we were spending on disabilities. So we're in good shape, but there are those fine areas. Some counties are having much more trouble with that. For instance, those counties who have never spent anything on disability tennis are suddenly now they've got a little bit of money and now they can. And you know, we're so lucky because there are some counties that have never had an administrator, and they all their jobs in the county are done by volunteers. Can you imagine not having a Janice? I mean, I'm sorry, but we can't possibly imagine a world without Janice. So, and now Jane and Phil and all these people that are actually doing a paid role. We're very lucky. Some of the counties are now just like loving the fact that they've got one, 3-day-a-week administrator, and LTA have given the money for it. And most of them have got now a performance officer as well. And some of them have got a social media paid person, and some of them have got a paid treasurer. All the counties have done it differently depending on what their needs are. So that's the kind of whole core role thing. Nigel's next question is the role of the LTA councillor. So it is an ideal scenario in a county that the chair and the councillor are different people. It's not the case everywhere, but it does become quite a big role if somebody in a county tries to do the chair role and then does the councillor as well. The councillor role is very much the link with the LTA council and with me. And the biggest part of their role is communication. So poor old Keith, he probably gets inundated. He gets at least 2 updates a month from me because I'm getting loads of stuff that I need to pass down to councillors. He then would get maybe 4 or 5 things in an update, and he would then, we put in what he has to do with them. So some of it's for him and some of it's, please pass this on to your awards rep, or please pass this on to your county administrator, or please pass this on to your performance person. So he gets nice, easy sort of instructions what to do with it. But he is responsible for coming back to you and telling you what he learns at council. And we make life a lot easier now for all of them. I noticed when I was deputy president, looking around at council, I was watching the councillors, and I reckon about a quarter of the councillors in the room were taking notes. The other 3/4 weren't. And that quarter probably all made different notes, which meant any information that was being passed to the counties was incredibly inconsistent. And I soon found out, because as a deputy, I went to a lot of online meetings with counties. And I found out that one councillor would start talking about the coach ed centres because he was a coach. And another one would talk about county training because he was a performance player. And another one would talk about the county communications hub. None of them talked about the same thing. And I was having an absolute fit around, what about all the other things you learned? They weren't passing that down. But Keith is very, very conscientious, and Nigel before him. And actually, they are bringing that stuff back. If you can tell on him, if he doesn't start just giving you plenty of information from LTA Council and from me, you better just come and tell me quietly, because but I'm very confident that he does. I don't think Kent have ever missed a deadline for nominations for president lunches, nominations for county volunteers to have Wimbledon tickets, any request for AGM or anything. We are just one of those goody two-shoes counties, thank goodness. Today, I sent 5 counties an email to remind them that they hadn't yet got any county award winners asking for Wimbledon tickets. And I don't want their county award winners missing out because somebody has not passed that information down. So that's the kind of thing that you're in good shape, because Keith does send that down. And then, of course, you guys in the office, you're right on all of those deadlines. So anything else about the role of the councillor? He does come to 4 face-to-face meetings a year. He gets opportunities to go to Billie Jean King Cup, Davis Cup. He gets some nice little perks. He gets a nice little perk of some Wimbledon tickets. You can always ask him nicely if you've got a really good reason for Wimbledon tickets, because he gets a shed load. Don't tell him I told you that. And I'm trying to think of what else he goes. To a certain extent, he represents you, and he should also be sharing good practice of what is good in Kent. He should be sharing that with other counties to give them ideas. Keith's interest in inclusion, he does well share, and he's on the development committee's work stream for inclusion, and he's very, very good on that and well thought of. And he'll pick up ideas to bring back to Kent, but he's also taking good ideas. I think Jason's on the call, aren't you, Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason,
Yeah,
I think,
I'm
you know,
here.
you help Keith a lot. And I know Keith takes a lot of the things he learns from you, he takes to that development work stream.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And that's where our expertise will help other counties. And that's one of the things that he will do. How is Kent regarded by the LTA? That's Nigel's next question. I think I've probably largely covered. We have been good for many years. I think we are a forward-thinking county, and we always seem to have had reasonably active counsellors. You know, I was it before Nigel and now Keith, and I think we are talkers, all of us, and we are very comfortable about contributing. We're not sort of silent at meetings, and we get stuck in. So we are well regarded, and I say good practice, lots of it, and yeah, really good. We don't quite beat Surrey on the flipping player front, but they have got 200 clubs. And I mean, if anybody wants to look at an unbelievable website, it is Surrey's, and Middlesex is getting better all the time. And in particular, well, Lewis Widham's does Surrey's, and they just produce players like there's no tomorrow. And well done them, but they are in comfortable, leafy suburbia south of London, quite near Wimbledon, so quite well motivated, got a lot of clubs, got a lot of big clubs, got a lot of coaches. And so I think it's slightly inevitable. Cornwall would say, yeah, we probably haven't had a good player from Cornwall for a very long time, but they still quite a well-run county, and they do their best with much smaller numbers. And one day we'll beat Surrey in the County Cup race. You never know. What's it like to be a board member? Well, on a personal front, it's blooming scary, if I'm honest. When I first joined the board, I didn't really know what I was getting into, and that it would be so heady. And the type of stuff we've had to deal with are things like whether or not we ban Russian players, you know, our relationship with the All England Club, ATP and WTA fines, transgender policies, currently the Saudi investment money. I have to say I'm quite lucky because on the LTA board, 5 of the members are independent, and they are unbelievable smarty pants. And they come from, one not there anymore, but was chair of Eurostar, and another was chair of Whitbreads. And they are really smart people. They don't know that much about tennis. So that's luckily, you know, I get a chance to contribute. You know, I think I've been asking for 2 years at the board, what is our position on pickleball? None of the rest of the board knew anything about pickleball, but I said, look, I'm out and about and I'm seeing it a lot, and I think we need to pay attention to it. And indeed we are, and we have applied to Sport England to be the registered body with Sport England for pickleball.
You might want to see this, Sandi.
Yes, it was all in the papers today.
Yeah, I've just been reading it.
Yeah, and I'm going to Wales on Wednesday, and I'm supposed to be doing some media interviews, opening a paddle centre, and they've just cancelled it because they are afraid that the journalist will turn up and start asking me about that article. Because there's negative media coverage about the fact that LTA hasn't particularly looked after paddle very well, therefore we won't look after pickle. But the guy who brought paddle in says we look after it brilliantly. And as far as he's concerned, and he was Paddle England and was willing to bring it into the LTA and said it could not have been better. But there are paddle operators out there who are independent entrepreneurs just building paddle centres who are saying that the LTA hasn't invested enough. I'm on the Tennis Foundation board, and just about every project that's come over my desk, if you like, because I have to approve them, has included paddle in the investment. We have invested a good deal of hundreds of thousands into paddle, and yet the media doesn't report that. So we'll have to wait and see what Sport England say about pickle, but we are in a very good position to take pickle over, and pickle is already, I think, inside other country tennis organisations. I think it is in France. I think it is in Australia.
So yeah, the trouble is the media that they just respond to somebody who's just complaining. So yeah, we've had a lot of big items on the board to deal with, but I'm very appreciative that there are some really clever people on the board where I don't have to contribute too much and on the heady stuff. Financially, we obviously look after accounts and everything and check the CEO spending. The CEO runs the business. The board do not get involved in running it in any way, but we, the board, we approve accounts, we approve strategies. We approved, for instance, the 1.2 extra million pounds to go into counties. So I had quite a lot to say about that one. I could, easily justify, because of my experience in counties, how that would be money well spent. Nigel's next question is about president's lunches at Wimbledon. This actually started as a 3-year rolling program. So it started 3 years ago. President lunches before 3 years ago were kind of a bit random. They would just invite lots of media people, lots of magazine, lots of sports celebrities. And then there was an idea that actually we should be looking after our own volunteers a lot better. And so we decided to run a 3-year run where we would invite 4 from every county to a president's lunch, and for 3 years, given that most boards in counties are around 10 or 12. So at the end of the 3-year spell, we would assume to have everybody covered, even take into account that there'd be some new people. Are any of you coming to this year's?
Yeah.
Claire, Charlotte? I can't see anybody else. Okay, well, the day's lovely. You turn up, you just meet lots of other people from other counties and organisations, meet a few of the LTA board members. I don't allow too many of them to come because it takes too many seats. And then Meritorious Service Award winners. So John Darby has in fact been nominated as a Meritorious Service Award. They've not been approved yet, but he might be there. And then you get a nice lunch, you sort of mingle with all these people. Scott and I do short talks, and then afterwards you get pucker seats on centre court. So fingers crossed you get some good matches, and it's a nice day. And then you can go back to the President's Suite anytime you like and have a fancy tea and a drink and stay there for as long as you like. I think they don't throw you out until about half an hour after play's finished on centre court. So it's a pretty nice day. Plan to spend as long as you can there and enjoy every minute of it. So that's the end of Nigel's list. I'm just throwing questions, anything you like.
Even I want, Sandy, just regarding parks. So what's the LTA sort of strategy regarding parks and clubs, and how to sort of stop clubs feeling sort of threatened in a certain way?
Okay, well, the parks have undergone this refurbishing, 3,000 of them, fitted with gate access systems, and all of them have to have an online booking system. A lot of them are also, what we're doing now is training activators who probably work for local authorities and who will run free tennis on Saturday mornings, a bit like Park Run. So they've got a whole bunch of equipment, and it's kind of unknown how well that will work. In terms of being threatened by clubs, it is quite interesting because I don't know, Anna's here. I remember this conversation in the Bromley Federation years ago. Do you remember, Anna?
Yeah.
And everybody in Bromley was right put out because Park Langley took over the Parks courts, and the likes of Beckenham and Sundridge Park and Bromley Lawn all created merry hell because they said, well, if you offer free tennis in the parks, our club members are going to leave and play in the parks. Well, it never happened. All right. So
what happened ultimately is the parks attracted new players largely. And of course, there are going to be exceptions to that. There are going to be the occasional players who decide that actually they're a member of Sundridge Park and they only ever play on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock with their set for. So why are they paying such a big membership? So yes, you may lose them if you don't prove to them the benefits of belonging to Sundridge Park. And any club has got to look to itself and go, well, what do we offer that would stop our members leaving and just playing in the park? That you're always going to have a better chance to provide that sense of belonging, social events, team play, competitions, and just generally that club atmosphere. So providing a club is providing. I was at Shooters Hill Awards on Saturday night, and I have never, there aren't, I mean, that and Sundridge Park, they're the two that I know do awards. I don't know many other clubs that do awards. Mepham, do you do awards?
We just do a finals day basically, and then just that's it. Yeah.
Avenue?
Awards? No one from Avenue, no.
Canterbury does.
Canterbury does. Brilliant. Okay, so club awards are lovely. The social event at Shooters Hill on Saturday night was just fantastic. And a new coach who's only been working there for 6 months came down from Leeds. He came up to me to let me know that he's worked in a number of clubs and that Shooters Hill was the friendliest club he's ever worked at. So I'm pleased to say that all the others were up north. So it's not like we're saying anything about a Kent club. But I think providing, in answer to your question, it was Andy, wasn't it? About parks. I think providing clubs are always thinking about what they're offering members and create a sense of belonging, then clubs and parks can live very happily next to each other. There are plenty of places where the clubs, the parks are actually run by the local club.
Yep.
And I think, Karen, you may have that example.
Yes, that's right. Yes, we're under the wing of Warmer Lawn Tennis Club at Markwood.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
Yeah.
They even employ their local groundsman to come up and clear the weeds from around the court. I think he comes up like 2 hours. I don't know if it's once a month at the moment, but it's really noticeable. You can tell when he's been there. It's well looked after. Yeah, it's a good setup. And people that are coming to like my sessions at Markwood, they're asking about wanting to join Warmer.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
I sense it's not going to be, oh, well, off to Warmer. It's they want to do both.
Yeah. And I think quite a lot of clubs that are linking with these new refurbished parks are using it as an extension of their own outfit.
That's right. And also, I mean, Warmer straight away was saying they wanted it to be very community-based to get the schools using it as much as possible. So the courts are free for schools to use during curriculum time and for after-school clubs if they want to use them. So, yeah, it's definitely their sort of community outreach.
Yeah, fingers crossed that'll happen everywhere. I mean, you can't guarantee it will. It will depend on the attitudes of the club and the attitudes of the local authority. Any other questions?
I'll ask one, actually.
Come on, Jason.
Going back to the regional team, so from your perspective, what would you say is an effective regional manager working with counties?
So an effective regional manager working with councillors in Kent, or
working with Kent, yes.
Okay,
in
well,
terms of how they should be communicating with.
Well, I think communication is the big one, isn't it? And I think what the responsibility of the regional person is, because they've got access to a lot of information, and I think it's very important. So I'll give some examples. First of all, the regional team person, if we call them the delivery team now, will have knowledge of what serves venues you've got in your county. They'll have knowledge of which clubs in the county are applying for funding, quick access loans, putting in floodlights and stuff like that. They'll have information maybe about which schools have done LTA youth training and their teachers. So I think it's very important that they share that information. And sometimes it's very important that the counsellor asks for that information. So if they don't give you the information you want, then ask for it and be proactive, because they don't want to bombard you with information if it's not what you want. And sometimes, though, as a county, you don't know what you don't know. So there's a little bit of making sure that, you know, you ask them, are you getting all the information you need? Because this new team, not that there'll be new people, but their new roles, is going to demand that they know a lot. And you could be helping them by asking a lot. Because they may find out what they don't know, and they find it out and they give it to you. So I think, and so keep an eye on things like the media. So you've just, a lot of you read about pickleball today. So then ask some obvious questions about pickleball. So ask them, for instance, how many venues do they know of in Kent that have marked down pickleball courts? That would be a good thing to know. Be a good thing for Kent trustees to know how many clubs are playing pickleball. When I go out and about, I recommend they play pickleball, but I recommend they mark it over a tennis court. And I also recommend that a pickleball court is the same as a red court, nearly, and that they shouldn't just mark a kitchen line, but they should also mark a service line. And that way, if you think of pickle and red, they can live alongside each other really well. So the children come in and train from 4 to 7 in the evenings, and then at Saturdays and Sundays. And the pickleballers are mostly there during the day or late evenings. So those two, that use of a small court in the US, they're doing something called multi-purpose courts that can be used for pickle or red. And they've got a big campaign for Red Ball for All. But that's because they have no control over pickleball whatsoever, and it's driving them up the wall. So, but they're the sort of things that the more you ask, the more they'll learn and the more you'll get back from them. Does that answer your question, Jason?
No, it really does. And just upon reflection, I think in terms of me and other trustees building more of a fuller picture around EDI, that would be the perfect route.
Yeah, and get them to tell you what they find out.
Yeah.
What are they hearing in the way of good examples of venues that they visit, or what they learn from other members of their team. You know, it might be that somebody has seen a club in Sussex that is very good with their EDI, or in Middlesex, Jason is very good with their whole EDI. So they, for instance, started a program called Inclusion Mentors. And they had, and Keith was actually at their online, I was there too. They had an online introduction of their mentors to club people. Now, he's got that, but he may not have been there. And then, so you need to get that sort of information from your regional team. What are the other counties doing, especially the big ones?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you for that.
Janice, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, Sandi, a quick question. You mentioned that the delivery managers would be able to sort of confirm how many sort of service venues we've got and other sort of information. Can that information, and probably some of it is already there on Salesforce, but wouldn't that information be automatically, or should be automatically, added into Salesforce so that we can download information? So for instance, if we knew that this club got pickleball or they've got paddle tennis, all that information be into Salesforce, so the knowledge is not in their head, but it's actually into the sort of LTA database.
Right, well, I suppose there are two things here. One is Salesforce is somewhat of a mystery to me, so I'm not going to be able to answer that terribly well. But if Salesforce is a library of information like you suggest it is, then yes, you should be able to go there. If it doesn't have the information that you want, like which clubs have got pickleball, then you should be going to the regional team and saying it would be helpful
if I could go to Salesforce and find out all the serves venues and also the pickleball courts and make suggestions to them about how Salesforce can work for you better. I think you've got to be quite proactive with this new team. And if you want that information, but it's not there, you should suggest that it should be there.
Yeah, we do ask for information from John Golding, obviously, and sometimes we get it, but not that often. And
Be persistent, Janice. Come on, be persistent.
I haven't got enough time.
I know, it's tough. I get it.
Using pickleball as an example, how would we know, or how would the regional team know how many clubs were playing pickleball?
They probably will never know exactly. It'll be based on where they're visiting and when they go to various forums and talk to people, because they have quite a lot of conversations with venue people. They may not be asking that question.
Well, exactly. I mean, I find I'm speaking to people in the Southeast team and we're trying to piece together how many paddle courts there are in Kent, and only by talking to each of them, listening to other people in clubs and just making contacts, do I get a list myself.
Yeah,
and pickleball's similar.
Yeah, it's even harder with paddle because of the independent operators who don't register with the LTA. Therefore, we've got no
control
record of them. You know, if a forecourt centre pops up somewhere in Maidstone and it's an independent business, nobody actually knows it's there. So, you know, one of the jobs of all of you guys is eyes and ears to the ground. You know, when you know something like HSBC apparently is going to put in 9 paddle courts, then somebody must know.
Is that so?
Apparently.
News to me.
Yeah, there you go. So, well, that's reached my planet. So,
not the regional teams though, because I spoke to them last week. So there you go.
Well, it might not have got far enough to register, especially if they're not applying for any funding.
Yeah.
So
great idea then.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are 9 going in, or 7 or 9 going in at Aldershot. So yeah, these are things that can be quite tricky to find out because nobody's got an obligation to inform the LTA unless you register. And there's a lot trying to be done. I think is it called the Paddle Hub in Reading or Slough?
Yes, it's in Slough, and there's another one which is obviously the same company.
Yeah, and it's taken Steph Trill months to persuade them to register with the LTA, but she has done it.
We haven't managed in Tunbridge to get it registered. It's annoying though, because they get to be on the website, so they get to people go on there and find it, but you know, they're not making a contribution, which I think is a bit of a shame. But there we go.
Yeah, I know. There's some things that are quite hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Karen?
Oh, there's Karen.
Yeah. So, I mean, if people aren't aware of all the pickle and the paddle courts that are around, where's safeguarding in that?
Exactly. I mean, that is the issue with the paddle operators who are popping these courts in everywhere, and nobody knows what kind of governance they've got, what safeguarding policies they've got or anything. So, and that is why a lot of our paddle people are trying to work with these guys to get them registered. Yeah. Actually, one of the things I didn't mention in terms of a library and something for all of you, I hope you're all connected to the County Communications Hub. So if you're not, will you talk to Jane about that? Because it's simply a matter of sending a chosen email address to Abby. And you can link to it and get on it regardless. But most county volunteers have got their email address lodged with Abby. You then would get alerts if something new has been put up. And then you've got to just make a choice. If something's come up there and there's an alert about the awards and you've got nothing to do with the awards, you don't have to read it.
But if it's to do with paddle and you have got something to do with paddle, you would read it. So you have to do a little bit of a filtering, otherwise you might be there all day. And I have to tell you, my one team bulletin that I am still writing, and I'm now on edition 39,
Wow.
which is absolutely blooming killing me on top of everything else. It's nearly the straw that breaks my back, but it's one of those things it takes me quite a while to put together. I love it when it's finished and I breathe a huge sigh of relief. But they're all there. So I'm on bulletin 39. So, you know, up to you, obviously, but do read it, at least skim it. So here's a taster for this one. I played tennis in Cambridgeshire with a man called John Willis, who has no arms and no legs. Just imagine that. Okay. So his story, well, there's just a couple of lines in there, but there's a link to his story. So
I wish, Sandy, that these bulletins, I mean, I've read many of them. I just wish they could get a wider audience, because there is some terrific stories that I think would connect with so many people in tennis.
I know. Well, they're meant, I mean, you know, if you secretly pass them on to your Sandridge Park committee, I'm never going to lose any sleep over it.
No, I do.
We know there are about 400 county volunteers, but we've got 700 people who read the bulletin every month, or every 6 weeks. So we know it goes a bit wider. But the LTA team would go absolutely nuts if they knew that it was then being encouraged to pass on to members. That's what can't happen, because they want sole responsibility for the information that goes to members via Advantage. And I get that, you know, they want that control. And a lot of my stuff is, you know, some of it's really interesting, some of it's just like little bits and pieces. And so do read it, honor me by reading it, since I put such a lot of effort into it. And do make sure you're all on the community hub. Use it as a library. So not that there's anything about the number of pickleball courts on there, but there might be something, and you can go there and go, not sure about insurance, or I'm not sure about this for the awards, or I'm not sure about something to do with our county dashboard. We've all got a county dashboard, which I'm sure you share at committee meetings anyway. And you can have a little nose at everybody else's county dashboard while you're there and see how we're doing. Nothing like a bit of competition with other counties.
Beat Surrey.
Especially Surrey, yeah. All right.
Sandy, Nigel was obviously disappointed. He was on a flight, as you probably know, back. So he wanted to ask me to thank you on his behalf. And I know Keith would really have liked to have joined us this evening, but he's on the Eurostar to Paris. What happens? What do we do?
Well, considering there are a lot of you here, so that's great. Well done. Okay, nice to meet you all.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure to see all of you. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. By all means, through the guys, just send any other questions to me another time. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.